Welcome to Hello You. Yes, you. The podcast that opens up the full spectrum of mental health like never before. We're not here to skim the surface. We go deep into every corner of the human experience. From international athletes to high-powered CEOs, everyday heroes to global change makers. Our guests bring raw, real, and radically different perspective on what mental health really means. This is your space, a place for truth, stories, and connection. Whether you're thriving, surviving, or somewhere in between, we're here to remind you you're not alone. So pull up a chair, take a breath, and let's talk about the stuff that matters. Welcome to the most open, honest, and inclusive mental health conversation in the world. I'm your host, Dan Darwin, and welcome to Hello You. Hello You would like to thank our title sponsors, the Loss Prevention Department at Next PLC.
And welcome to another episode of Hello You. And today, my guest is Linvoy Primus. Linvoy, can you introduce yourself?
I can. Hi, Dan. Yes, I'm Linvoy Primus. Do I name my age? Might as well. 52. Former footballer and still living in the Portsmouth area as well, which is home for me and my family. Mm-hmm. My parents are down here as well. And still travelling around the country, supporting different charities, supporting young people on their journeys and stuff like that. So, that's a bit about me.
Cool. I'm looking forward to talking to you. And the age thing always scary, isn't it, when we start to think about talking about our age? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned footballer.
Yep.
So that was your career for how long?
I think once I was training more than twice a week, it was from the age of 14.
Okay.
And I got to about 35 when that was it. So, 21 years, something like that? 21 years? No, I don't know. Yeah, you know the maths. Yeah, a long time.
21 years.
21 years, that's it, yeah.
So what was the early Linvoy? What was...
The early Linvoy, it's funny. I don't seem to remember being a bad kid. Mm-hmm. But I don't seem to remember my parents being upset with me because of something I'd done elsewhere. It was more like mischief in the house.
Okay.
And I think that was because of boredom. I lived in the 17th floor block of flats, 3 bedrooms. And to go out and play was quite a tough area. I grew up in Stratford, so it's quite a tough area. So, but the passion for not sport, just running, getting my energy out, that was me. I just needed to do that. And then I realised that I could kick the ball hard and run fast. So that little combination got me excited about football, and other sports as well, but more football. And then the opportunity to actually play for a team came about because I was at a Cub Scout tournament. My dad put me into the Cub Scouts at this tournament, and there were 2 boys that I'd heard of who lived locally, and they were playing for another team in this Cub Scout tournament. So I thought, God, they're good. And after the game, they said I was good. So I thought, maybe I am good if they've said it. And the long and short of it was within about 3 or 4 months, I then signed for a team, Sunday team. I didn't do it the correct way. I didn't tell my parents I was going to sign for this team. I just went, signed for this team, came back, then told them. But in a way, I suppose it showed my passion that I really wanted this. And also, it was an opportunity just to play organised football. There was no thought process about money. There was no thought process about career because I didn't know. I didn't know how you become a professional. I just thought I just want to play. So it started about 12, and then by 14, I got scouted by Charlton. And I'll always say this, there's always people in your life who make an impact, negative or positive, and you seem to remember them. And the coach of my Sunday team, he wrote to every team in London to get us a trial, every player a trial, because he had been in trouble himself. And he said, I want to give you an opportunity to live a better life than what I've led. For me to remember that now, after all these years, it's something that stuck with me. So he wrote, and Charlton said, bring your whole team over. We went and played. 6 of us got the opportunity to go back and train with them. That got whittled down over a couple of months, and I was the only one left. And then I was playing for Charlton from the age of 15. And then working towards a scholarship, working towards an apprenticeship. So yeah, that's how it really started.
So at 15 years old, what are you thinking about how this pans out for you?
Yeah. It was really strange. You live in two worlds. The world where you know that the opportunity and the chance of getting a profession or a scholarship is hard, because you knew that there were different players coming in, week out on trial. So you could be the best player one week, but a player might have got released from Chelsea and Charlton then bring him in. He plays your position. Because he plays for Chelsea, he's always going to be favoured. So you have these little bits of doubts. Then you have this belief that you're good, you're good enough. But what probably helped was your friendships, because they're the ones that say, yeah, you're good enough, you've got what it takes. You got a couple of jealous ones, but but then that was another pressure, because it's like, oh, I've got to do well now because my mates are saying I'm going to do well. So it was weird, and my parents didn't understand football, so it wasn't like I could turn around and ask them for advice. And in all honesty, they were worried that football wouldn't give me a career path. You know, they just thought, well, even if you do play football, what are you going to do? What else are you going to do, sort of thing. So so there was a bit of nervousness, mixed emotion, lots of lack of belief, you know, in terms of, can I do this? Will I be good enough? Can I make the next level? Lots of that. But those voices and things got quietened when you went on the pitch, because you perform well and you do what you needed to do. But as soon as you came off the pitch, it's like, the next game now, you've got to think of the next one and play well and all that. So yeah, it's an intense world, but you sort of live it on your own, because you don't want to show any weakness as well, which is, you know, hide your feelings, hide your emotions. So you've got to grow up quick, but you have to also recognise that it doesn't all end in a moment when a coach makes a decision. But you don't. You're young and you think, this is it. This is my only opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess, what's the environment like? What's it like?
I found it difficult, because my vulnerability was I couldn't take a joke in terms of banter, because my experience of banter growing up was it was an older brother who knew the right things to say. So it was always personal, even if it wasn't. So when my experience of it from that point, going then to a 15, 16-year-old into a dressing room where a lot of these boys are confident, you know, their parents have got lovely cars because they're doing okay. And then to hear how confident they are on what they're saying just made me sit in a corner. So I felt quite threatened. But because I suppose whatever I'd done wholeheartedly, there was a little bit of respect, like coming back, but it was never enough for me to be fully confident that this room and this world that I'm in are supposed to be there. Never fully confident at all. So it was a battle of the mind in a lot of senses.
Would you say that you probably had imposter syndrome?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And you didn't know it then. That's the thing. You didn't know what it was about. But there's this inner drive. And I think, and this is what I wouldn't always say, but it's a reminder about what we dream about when we're kids. My dream to become a professional footballer started when I watched the cup final between Tottenham and Man City on TV. You know, it was a replay and the Tottenham guy scores this goal. And I always thought the way he scored the goal was what drew me to football, but it wasn't. It was the reaction of the crowd. And that's what I wanted. But I didn't know I wanted that. I thought I just wanted what was on the pitch. So by the time I realised that, you know, what I was looking for from football was more than just what I was doing on the pitch, it was that sense of, I want that. And I'm going to stop hanging about with a few friends. I'm going to go for runs on my own. I had a rucksack, right? This rucksack with, at the time you weren't allowed to do this, so please no one do this now, but nicking the badges out of the front of cars, like Volkswagen and Ford. So the rucksack with all those badges on. My brother had weights in his room, like weights with the sand in. Yeah. And I put them in my rucksack and I do press-ups in the living room, just so I could give myself a bit more of an edge to Where that came from, I don't know. Because nobody said to me, you need to. I just thought that might be an advantage. And I used to watch this Pele video, yes, a VHS video. You have to rewind it, play it. It snapped in the end because I'd watched it so much. But it would show his techniques for heading, for jumping, the training he'd done. And I mimicked it. That's all I'd done and mimicked it. So that one game, those things I was doing away from the public eye, doing on my own, really gave me the sense that I want this. I really want this. Whatever it's going to take, I really want this.
So you talk about it being a lonely place at times. I'm assuming because of the era you were in there, the mental health support within the clubs wouldn't have been there.
No.
They wouldn't have understood that.
The only time they understood it was when there was tragedy. That was the only time. And even then, it was always about stress. It wasn't a specific thing. You couldn't say, well, because alcohol was part of the stable diet back then, in terms of, I reckon probably when I came in the 90s, it was just at its height, and then started to come away when Arsene Wenger and those guys came in 2000. So it's just like, so nobody saw depression because alcohol was the best thing to make me feel brave and feel good after a game, bad, good, drink or whatever. So it was hidden, but it wasn't until tragedy. So there was no support because it was, again, a hidden thing. And I think now when I look back, because I've known 2 teammates from Charlton who'd taken their own lives, no, 3 in fact. And even though at the time we knew there was something not right, it was the unspoken thing. It was like, don't mention it, sort of thing. So, yeah, football's learnt a lot. It's still got a lot to learn, but so is the world, really, in terms of this.
Well, that stigma's still there. People don't want to talk about it. After my suicide attempt, I know I walked into rooms and people stopped talking.
Yeah,
you think to yourself, were they talking about me?
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it they just feel awkward? Or, but that stigma's still there around people worry that if they say the wrong thing, that you're going to go and drive off your own life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it's better to say something rather
than
than
nothing. Exactly, yeah.
So you're 16 years old. When did you sign professional tapers for the first time?
So finished school, done my exams and stuff, GCSEs. My dad said, look, if you're going to go down this football route, you need to make sure you got your exams, case, fullback sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I got offered an apprenticeship, a scholarship, and I was saying that if there was 365 days of training in my first year, I probably trained 100 of those days because physically I couldn't cope. I couldn't, whether it was the pitches, and most of my problem was lower back that then would affect my hammies. But we only knew it was my hammies. We never knew it was the back. So every time I'd get fit, I'd break down again because, we're working on the wrong thing.
Okay.
So those days that I wasn't training were probably the hardest because you're with the physio. He doesn't really want to work with you because he's the first team physio. So you're with him. Then you can see your colleagues and teammates training every day, playing on a Saturday. What that does for you is put you down the pecking order of getting a contract because the whole thing of a scholarship is to get that professional contract. So the second year, I was a bit stronger physically, but I couldn't. It was like the challenge of playing scholars football wasn't enough. And and this is how football works. Someone gets injured, someone has to go on loan, all of a sudden you're in a team. So I was now in the reserve team and I played so well, no fear, nothing, because it was like, I deserve to be here. But when I go back down to the academy scholars again, I couldn't play. So they were saying there's something wrong here and, mentally. So I'm now questioning myself. So I've gone from this stage of wanting to get into the team. Now I'm in the reserves. Now they're questioning that I can't play well for them, but I can play well for them. But realistically, they're saying that's good because he can go to the first team. So now I'm like in this like seesaw. How do I behave? How do I behave now? And do I act like a a person that goes into the manager and says, right, that's enough, not happy, or do I just take it? And all the time, when I was unsure, I just took it. I never spoke out, and I internalized it, overthought it. And in the end, football became not even a job. It became a bind. It became like something that was draining rather than the fun thing I remembered. But after that, you know, even in those 2 years, I still got a professional contract, which was like, amazing because of what I'd done in the reserves, you know. So this is the start, and we can't go into it today. We probably have to come on another time and talk about the stuff behind football. But my first contract I signed with Charlton, one contract was for my wages, and it was about £250 a week. But then there was another contract for £250 a week for my digs, which been going to my parents. So signed it. Anyway, only 2 of us got professional contracts, by the way. So when we got paid in August, I looked at my contract payslip. I thought, that doesn't look right. And I'm not great at maths, but that don't look right. So anyway, I saw the other player and I said to him, you know, have you checked? He said, yeah, it's not right. So I said, should we go and see the CEO? So he said, yeah, we'll go together. So as we was going there, one of the players said to us, oh, what's going on? We said, oh, we haven't had this. And they went, oh, they're at it again. So I was like, oh, what's that mean? So anyway, we go up into the office, and blatantly, as 2 players, we walk in and we say, oh, this is what he said to us, nah, you're lying. I wouldn't have done that. You know, there's only, here it is. I was like, no, there's a blue one and a pink one. He went, nah, load of rubbish. So get out. And that was it. And, you know, there was a bit of me that was like obviously disappointed, not so much angry, but disappointed. But another part of me that was like, now they're going to want me to give everything for them, but yet they couldn't give me something that was promised to me. So, and this other guy, and we were just like, oh, I can't believe it. And we told a few other players, and they were like, what can you do? You know, if you can't prove, what can you do? And it's like, oh. And that was my introduction to my first professional contract. So it was, but you also recognise you're in a privileged position, and they know that. Yeah. And they take a little bit of advantage of that.
I guess because every boy's dream.
Exactly,
right?
yeah,
so,
yeah.
And already from what you're saying, that group of players is whittled down. You make it into Charlton's academy, so to speak, and from that you only get 2 people who make it. And this is the big thing, isn't it? That the percentages and the margins are so small, aren't they?
Yeah, real small.
And people having to deal with that loss of a dream, the resilience to be a footballer is tough, isn't it? It's a tough lesson.
It's a tough lesson, yeah. It's a tough lesson. I think it's just magnified in a smaller environment because it's all performance-based. You're only measured on your performance. You know, you realise people like you because you're a footballer. They like you a bit more because you play well. They love you if you're the star. If you're none of those 3, you're not, you know, in terms of what the value is. What's your value? Oh, I'll go for money. Oh, I'll go for car. Oh, I'll go for the lifestyle. And it's like the value then goes away from these 3 things that make you the best in the eyes of other people, because actually you know that changes, it's fickle. So you start to then move into this place of, right, I'm going to get things that will say yes all the time, will always smile. So if it's a car or an entourage that say yes, and, you know, so it's to continue to feed something that's not real. And yeah, it's learning as well, because if there's a model of it through social media, a lot of guys will follow that model thinking that's what you need to look like. And actually, you know, when you step back a few years later, you think, what did I do that for?
Yeah. And we see it all the time now with the emergence of social media, that people are on there displaying this sort of life, and other people imitate that because they think that's where I want to be. I think influencers are now the new footballers.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be an influencer. Yeah. And again, the percentages are really small, and it's not real.
No.
It's not real. No. I think at least you can attribute the footballing side to a talent that's there. But I'm just thinking, obviously performance-wise, when your performance isn't where you want it to be, how does that affect you mentally?
So I think most professional sports people will never find perfection. So whatever a good performance looks like, you're always critiquing it, always. You're never settled. I think the only time you settle is if you get an award at the end, you know, whatever that is. And for me, my mental health was in a terrible place because I was probably my biggest critic, because I'd experienced some things in football where if you stepped outside the lines, you paid the price. So if you want to be accepted, stay inside the lines. Don't be a maverick, stay inside the lines. So you become restricted again. So if you do something that contributes to a goal conceded or anything like that, you take it on yourself because it's like, oh my days, that was totally my responsibility. How can I fix that? And then you go to the next game and think, I don't want to make that mistake, and you become more rigid. So I don't think I didn't handle it well. I didn't handle it very well because I doubted myself anyway. If I was this like in my mindset, it's okay, you'll go again, you'll get another chance, I might have been okay, but I wasn't. It was like, oh, don't give me the ball. Don't give me the ball now. And so it was a horrible battle, and there wasn't a space to talk to anybody. There wasn't at this time, psychologists and stuff were coming in, but they were deemed as like a person that is coming in to change everybody's minds and stuff like that. So it's a real like anti thing there. But I think, because even talking to senior pros about how you're feeling would have been a weakness, you know, it would have been seen as a weakness. So yeah, I struggled, but I wouldn't have called it mental health. I just would have called it glass half empty, because I want a glass full, half full, but I can't look at it like that. But I think now I'd understand it well-being wise and mental health wise. I'd understand it in a different place now.
Yeah, and I think it was around that time, and you sort of prompted my brain to go into. You remember when Glenn Hoddle was manager of England?
Yes, Eileen Drury. Yeah.
He got ridiculed, didn't he, in the press for that? Absolutely ridiculed. Yeah, the players didn't like it. I think some probably did, maybe. Yeah. But it wasn't the done thing, was it?
No.
And it's a male-dominated environment.
Yep.
Where anything where you show vulnerability,
it's over.
Yeah,
it's over. And you know what? I think that's a little bit of the working class background where football came from, where the guys on the terraces were from the docks, and they got up early, they worked hard, and they came, put their money in. And some of those boys that were younger had worked on the docks at younger ages, but they got picked out to play. So now they're looking at their mates. So it was like, oh, he's giving us everything. So where there's a disconnect now, it's like the players that are coming into clubs, it's not their club. You know, it's not their club anymore. So the disconnect, the feeling of playing for this club and, you know, I'll give everything for them isn't the same anymore, because you know now, and you've seen over years what football clubs can do and will do. But back then it was considered, for me, if I moved from Charlton to somewhere else, it wouldn't have been, oh, it's a bad egg, oh, he's just got to move, you know, he's just got another move and stuff. Whereas now it's a case of when those guys get those moves, because it's so public, it's like, well, what are they receiving? I don't know why I went down that route. Sorry, man. I was running down this rabbit hole thinking, Lynn, where are you here? Come back.
That sort of takes me into, so when you're on the pitch, you said that's your escape.
Yeah.
It switches off.
Yeah.
So life outside of football at that time, as you're getting to the point of signing professional contracts, how's that going for you?
That's all right, but I'm now feeling the pressure of what expectation of my friends are and stuff like that. And because my sole focus was football and playing and everything, I had nothing else. So when it came to about 17, I think I might have had my first drink.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, this is all right. I've forgotten about the world here, you know, and I went on a bit of a journey with alcohol and training and stuff like that. But I always knew the line. Like, I'd get drunk and I'd throw up and stuff, but I always knew like if you've done it this weekend, then you can't be doing it in the week and you can't do it next weekend. So I had that. But I felt that I was missing out on that side of my life because all my friends are going out and raving and things like that. So, I delved into that to try and use that as my way of escape of what I felt the pressure was at football.
And was that as well because you've already said that football became a bind?
Yeah.
And it was sort of maybe a means to an end or whatever. So did you then think, well, actually, I can take the focus off that and enjoy this part of my life?
Yeah.
And I still got football there.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, but I think it was definitely more escapism than anything else because I knew that who I set out to be from the age of 9 or 10, I was heading to that point, but I was nearly failing. That's what it felt like. And it was like, if I can fail because I've been going out and drinking and doing all that, that's the reason. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Excuse there. So you rationalise it to yourself. I could have done it.
Yeah.
Just these things
Away. Right, but then I wasn't good enough.
all those,
Yeah.
Okay. So you've made these sacrifices and you're pushing on. How long did you stay at Charlton for?
So I ended up getting a professional contract at 18. I was mentioned, and then played 6 games, got man of match in my first game. It was live on TV, so that was massive. That was like, I think if I had social media at the time, I would have had billions of followers because it was such an impact. 6 games get dropped. A year after that, I'm told by Charlton I can leave. So I've gone from hero to zero in my eyes. In a lot of people's eyes, I failed because the potential was there, and now Charlton don't want you. And I just had my first son. So now I'm in a position, 20 years old. What am I going to do? First time thinking I'm going to have to get a proper job here. And I won't go into the detail of it, but I was fortunate enough to get another club, which was Barnet. I had an opportunity to go to Cardiff, but I chose to go to Barnet because they offered me a contract, whereas Cardiff only offered me a trial. Cardiff were the bigger club by far, would have paid me more money, but I needed security.
Yeah.
So I took this contract. I was angry at Charlton. I thought, look what they've done to me, left me in this position. So there was a lot of anger, a lot of will I continue in this in terms of can I do this? But the overriding thing was I've got to look after my family. I've got to make sure that I can prove Charlton wrong, and I'm going to use that as my motivation. So all the fear that I had before of not being good enough, I'm going to use this now. And I reckon the first 3 months at Barnet, the first game, I couldn't run. I was so scared that my muscles filled up with lactic in the warm-up.
Yeah.
And then it was so hot, I was dehydrated. And one of my own teammates would run past it, don't give him the ball, look at him, he's in a right old state. And I was like, oh no, they're saying that about me, my own teammates. So, and again, somebody done something maybe 2 games later that I'll never forget. We were playing Hartlepool away, midweek game. We were staying in the hotel during the day, I think, or the evening day. And the coach came into, knocked on my door and said, come on, let's just go for a little walk. So he said, get your stuff, let's go for a walk. So we were getting ready to get on the coach to go to the ground. And he said, come on, we'll go for a walk. So walked. He's talking away. And he's talking about his experience of what I went through with the legs, stress. And he spoke about it and I didn't realise, but what he was doing is just taking my focus off the game. Anyway, we ended up walking right to the ground. I played one of the best games ever because it distracted me. I realised I wasn't the only person in that position who feels that and has felt that. But what he done, and this is when you realise when you need somebody in your life, to speak to or hear from, and what he done in that moment taught me something amazing, that if you can distract yourself, you still want to do what you want to do, but the distraction is you think you're not good enough, but you are. That's what got you here. But you hear so many people say so many things like that, And you're like, is it true? Do they really think that of me? You know, so even you doubt what they say. So yeah, I think in that moment, from that moment of deciding that I'm going to prove Charlton wrong and the fire that gave me, to actually the realisation that I was still scared, to dealing with that. And then after that, for the 3 seasons I was there, I was always in the top 2 for Player of the Year. But I still didn't feel I was good enough. It's crazy. Still didn't feel I was good enough, you know.
And for me, there's one sentence that sums all that up, and sometimes I say it is, thoughts are good, thinking is bad. Yeah. And it's one of us there. So, because it is, you have a thought, that's great. Yeah. When you start thinking about that, you go into minutiae, you run scenarios in your brain, and by the time you've just a quivering road.
Yeah.
When you know you've got the ability to go and do it.
Yeah.
So that's had a big turning point on you. So you're still a young boy, really.
Yeah, 22, 23 now. By my time through Barnet, so I was growing up. I always say, in the metaphor of being recognised as a man, I knew I grew up in those 3 years. I went from boy to man in terms of what I could do on the pitch and how I became a sort of leader and what was going on off the pitch as well. So I knew that, okay, this is all right, this is for me, but it still wasn't enough. I still had this, I need to prove to Charlton. So I still had that fight. There was still an energy to keep me going.
Some real sliding door moments, even really early on in your career, in terms of what would have happened if you'd gone to Cardiff. Where did that take you?
Yeah.
There's so many things that could have happened.
Definitely.
But you've got this drive and you're pushing on. So the adulation of the fans still driving you,
it's still there. Yeah, not craving as much now because I knew how quickly they could change, because we was in a few relegation battles with Barnet, and even though there's 5 people there, they still make a lot of noise when they're booing you, you know. So I didn't really, it was nice, put it this way, you'd rather have adulation than booing, you know, and all that. But I think the that sense of your teammates, that's the first time I recognised a group that were together, that wanted to be together and done things together outside the game with our families individually. So all of that was made me think, this is what it's about. This is what I didn't know could be created, but it is, and I'm part of it.
A nice community.
Yeah, nice community, but because there's no finances in it. Everyone was on the same sort of wage, and, you know, there's young families. So there was everything we were doing. It wasn't about a brag or a show off. It's like there's a birthday party. Can all the boys that got kids, if you want to come, you're more than welcome. And some you wouldn't really socialise with came, and you end up being a bit more social with them. So, yeah.
Do you think clubs are getting that right now with the community within the club?
It's hard to say. I think that's manager, coach driven more than anything else. Players can, because it's so transient, you know, players come and go. So the manager drives it. But I think if the club have got something their values stick to, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But because so much change, that those values, they're words, they don't mean nothing in the end, they don't live by it. So I think it has to be, if it's going to be driven, it's manager, coach driven, and then players buy into it.
Yeah, because the human aspect of everything, community is huge. To feel like you belong somewhere gives you that ability to go on and do other things. You've got the support, you've got people around you that you can turn to that will have your back. And you think that's the camaraderie you're looking for, whether it's whatever workplace, whether that's football, whether that's in the office. It makes it better, doesn't it? And you think, why are people missing this fundamental thing that all humans want? We all crave connection and community. That's what we want. And we find it in different ways. And I say to my kids all the time, they're like, this is my friend from school. And I said, do you know what, as you get older, you'll realise that your friends at school are your friends because we chose to live in an area.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And when you find what you like is when you find like-minded people and you build your own little communities of friendship and stuff. And these are the people that stay with you for life. I imagine that being more difficult as a footballer.
Yeah.
Because you're always on the move.
Always. My best friendship in football, best friendships have come about because I played against them before I knew them. We'd speak after the game in the bar, and then we played alongside each other at Pompey. but the friendship started way back. And you're right. It was never going to get harmed because we were never close enough for if someone had to go, that would be it. So we'd see each other twice a season and maybe something else in between by accident. We didn't plan anything family-wise, but when we got at the same club, then we did, and that's how deep it was. But any other friendships that I've got that have with teammates, I've got none where I know that I would speak to them every month. But if I picked up the phone at any time, it'd be great, it'd be fine. But you don't, like you say, it's so transient. The sport's so transient that you cannot. It's very hard to keep strong friendships because you end up one place, they end up somewhere else. So it's really it is difficult, and it's as difficult as for the players, the partners and wives. It's for hard. Yeah, it's so hard.
Almost like being in the military, isn't it?
Yes, exact thing. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question that always comes into my head. So you've got friends in football and you're moving all over the place. We have all this excitement around transfer deadline day. Right? Do you know when your mate is coming to join you at a club?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'll tell you what happens normally. Even though they could be coming to your club, they could be going to 5 others. So they're never quite sure, and it's the negotiation bit that changes it. So you're aware, and sometimes when you see stuff in the paper, you're like, that's a load of rubbish. That's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are aware. But like I say, deals. Darren Moore was travelling he was leaving us, and he could have gone to Derby or West Brom, and he spoke to West Brom, and that's his hometown as well. So he spoke to them, and it was pretty good. But Derby said, "We want you. Come up and speak to us at least." So on the way up, they're about half an hour from Derby, and in his gut is like, nah. And he looked out the window, and he saw this truck going past, like off the slip road, and it had West Bromwich Albion on it. So he got the driver to turn around, and he drove back down to West Brom.
That's not a sign from the universe.
Exactly. But yeah, you just know, again, as much as your mate is your mate, it's such a short career that you sort of got this outward facade of it is about money, but it's not. But it is. That's the bottom line. And we've seen it time and time again. Someone makes a decision, and you're like, oh, what happened there? And it's financial. You can't challenge that, because actually, if I was in that position, could I, would I, who knows? And I think that's if more players were open and said that, the financial thing for me is a big thing. So that's what I've chose here. I think there'd be a bit more, okay, well, at least he's honest. Now, come on, run now. You said you want the money, now run,
And I think we've seen it even more with the emergence of the Saudi League.
Yeah.
I think that's where you see it now, and you think, oh, why they're very young going there.
Yeah.
But I think it's only because we put a microscope on football. You wouldn't say that if someone went and joined Google.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
He's gone up 300 miles to get a job up there for money.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, fair play.
Yeah, exactly,
It is judged a lot more. So for you now, you've been... you've moved club.
Yep.
And then where does your career take you? Where it going?
So we then 3 years at Barnet, the dream and the aim was always to get back into the league that I felt I could play at, which was a championship.
Yeah.
Charlton was still in the championship. And then I got sold to Reading. So after 3 seasons, I got sold to Reading. First time moving out the area, lots to adjust to and things like that. But the biggest adjustment, I think, was for the first time, nobody knew us from as children. And everybody that knew us now knew us as a footballer and his wife. And that came with another pressure. That came with expectation. They expected us to have these lavish parties and the Beckhams turn up and things like that. Well, no, we're from the street, we ain't got time for that. But it put a different spin, that people wanted to be our friends because of the sport rather than for us. So that was difficult.
How do you differentiate?
Navigate it. It's one of those you bite it and see, and if it tastes awful, you get out.
Yeah.
And that was hard because you really want to make friends. You really want to, settle. You just want, as much as the job you do has got profile, you just want people to see you as you, because that's what we've been used to.
Yeah.
That's what we were used to growing up. And even when I became a pro, it was like, it's only Linvoy, so what, he plays football sort of thing, which is great, really good. So coming to Reading and having that was really hard. And I think the 3 years there, it was definitely my toughest in football, because there was a mental health illness with my wife. There was, football-wise, we went through relegation. Finances were a challenge, not for me personally, but were a challenge. And in the end, I lost love of the sport, because I had 4 things happen to me that just made me realise that people are out for themselves. The first thing was the first contract at Charlton. The second thing was I signed with an agent, and the agent wasn't doing too much. Another agent approached me and said, I can get you a move. You have to sign out of this contract, and done that. Then I receive something from court saying I've got to appear at court because I've breached my contract with this other agent. I think, what is this? So I end up having to pay pay something as compensation. And then my contract with Reading was running out, and the way it was handled was terrible. And I just thought, what's the point? This is the thing I entered because of that one guy scoring the goal, and now I'm in this place of what's the point? And the contract that Reading offered me, I walked away from just to try and get some peace back in the life. And I didn't have nothing to go back to. There was nothing like I could go back to London and say we'll start again. So those 3 years were tough. And then I got a phone call from Portsmouth to come and have a trial. That annoyed me. I had to come and have a trial, yeah. Well, I thought the manager, he knows me. I played against his teams. Why have I got to come and have a trial, Anyway, I came in 2 weeks later, I got offered a contract, which was less than what Reading offered me, but I just thought it's survival mode now, just got to get as much as I can and try and whatever football looks like from now till I retire, golf after that and play golf.
Yeah.
So, but so that was the plan. So get a contract and just get as much as I can and just, go off into the sunset really.
So those few years must have been really challenging in terms of mental health, because you've got so much going on.
Yeah.
How do you switch all that off and play?
You don't. I didn't realise the way I was fueling myself, that the energy of how I was going to perform, I didn't know how I was going to feel in a game until the first 5 minutes of the game. I didn't know if I was going to be okay, but what I had so much nervous energy, I burned so much energy that I'd get to the last 20 minutes of the game, I couldn't move. And they would go, look, he's not fit enough. And so that's another challenge, but I didn't know why. I didn't know that home life was affecting as well. So, but I used alcohol to drown that out as well, which was an easy thing to do. And I wouldn't say we used things to fill the space, but it's definitely trying to, whether it was a holiday, whether it was a car or something, to try and switch it off. But you don't. And your form literally goes like that, because you just don't know if your prep has been steady enough to cope with what's coming.
Yeah, it's almost like the old school retail therapy would be self-care.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not self-care. It's not how you love yourself.
No.
But you're using that. And obviously alcohol was still going unnoticed, because it was part and parcel of the game still.
Exactly, yeah.
And that bit has changed now, hasn't it? Massively in terms of where clubs are with it. And there seems a lot more support around that now than there ever has been before.
Yeah.
So you get really a fresh start at Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So you come here, you obviously love the city.
Yeah.
Because you've stayed here.
Yeah.
So so many things to love about it. I do love Portsmouth. There is the bad points. I've seen the bad points in my career, but on the whole, I think it's a brilliant city.
Yeah.
So your fresh start, how does it start for you?
Well, after getting the contracts, so the land manager was like, "Oh, he's a free transfer. We'll sign him up. You know, with him, they have to pay nothing for him." So heading towards the start of the season, and I could tell there's friction in the camp because there's a lot of senior pros who the manager doesn't really fancy. There's a lot of young kids who are not ready yet. And you've got a handful in between, and I was in between.
Okay.
So come the night before the first game, I think it was Sheffield United away. A couple of players go down injured, so he's now got to rely on the players that he didn't want to bring in, senior players. So a couple of them get injured in the game. We're losing 1-0 and we're under it. You know, it's, if we get anything from this game, you know, they'll be calling you to nick us because we robbed them really. Then we get an equaliser. No, we don't. Sorry, we don't get an equaliser. We're getting into the last, but we're putting pressure on them, and we're getting to the last 10 minutes of the game, and they're attacking down the right wing, and they're attacking their main end, which is like our Fratton end, and I know what the guy's going to do. He's going to shape up to cross it across a defender and me, so he goes past me, between me and the goalkeeper. So as he's doing it, in my head, the ball's going slow. In my head, he's going slow. And I'm saying to my left leg, do not swing, do not swing. All of a sudden, my leg, on its own, goes back, and I swing, because I'm not left-footed, I swing. The ball comes off the end of my boot, the toe of my boot, spoons over our goalkeeper, and goes in, so they're 2-0 up.
Oh.
Anyway, we get a goal back. So on my debut for Pompey, I helped Sheffield United win.
So not the greatest start.
Not really, not at all.
So you said earlier that the adulation pushes you on, right? How does it feel when they're booing you?
Yeah, that's...
Because there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to be fair,
Sheffield
United fans were like cheering me, so it was all right. Do you hear it? Yes, there's been some nights. I think the nights are far worse than the day when the fans aren't happy, because it feels like it's really on you. Whereas, and the darkness, so those boos, you end up going into this place of fright. Don't want to make a mistake. If I make a mistake and all of that, or some just take it on and go, right, I've got this. For me, I was about 50-50. If I could, I always tried to do the best I could, but if I saw other people not trying or hiding, it upset me so much that I'd end up playing like their game and not concentrating on my own game, and so so the effect of booing, or you're not fit to wear the shirt and all of that, it does, but there's something again that you have to work towards. When you hear that, you've still got to try and do your stuff well. You've still got to try somehow, even if it means you play rubbish and whatever, but you get through that game. You've just got to, there's something with it, and you can't coach it. It's like your experience of going into something quite dramatic. You can't coach that first moment, can you? They can talk about it, but by the 10th moment, you've sort of got an idea, right? If we're coming in here, that's probably going to happen. So you don't less processing and actually reacting. So I got to that stage, by the end of my career, through my career at Pompey, because I believed in myself at this point. So hearing those negative things, actually, I didn't take it on board.
Because it's got to have an impact when you come off the pitch as well.
Yeah. Well, you're going to the shop. They're all Pompey fans, you know what I mean? So they're kind. They're really kind, because they say, "Oh, you were good," but the rest of them, and you're like, "No, I was rubbish as well," But you live it. We live it. The kids found it hard. The kids found it hard for their in school and stuff. And in the end, we had to take him out, put him in a private school where the possibility of moving wouldn't harm them, because this school had other schools in different areas. But because a lot of the families were military families, they were used to be able to, if someone moves, how you help them and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's harder for the kids, because before Dad was known, where we lived, it was only a few people knew us, but now everybody knew us, and it was different. It was a bit different.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to say fans are fickle and it changes, the fortune changes with it.
Yeah.
But at that moment, you've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And we all say, do you know what? It'd be great if we could compartmentalise our brains and go, right, I'm at work now.
Yeah.
That's work stuff.
Yeah.
I don't take it home, but you can't. It seeps in everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's going to affect you.
Yeah. Well, you think most, I don't know if it's the same now, but most footballers would have been watching Sky Sports News. So what do you see all the time? The table, the injury doubts, what people are saying. So it's constantly fed to you that you're either good, bad, or ugly in terms of that. But like I say, I'm not too sure if current footballers do that now because of the way social media is. You don't really get to switch off from it.
We even, and talking about the fans, is something that's in the news now with Declan Rice.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
There's a Spurs fan, as he went over to say the corner, was showing a picture of Declan's other half and shaming her.
Okay, I see what you mean, yeah.
Declan, he's talking to Saka in the middle of the pitch, saying, they're showing to me as I was in the corner. Of course I'm angry. And you just think, these fans, they don't realise the impact they're having. We're still human.
Yeah.
We're still human.
Yeah.
It's a job.
Yeah. It's strange. And I think how social media allows access, which was good, but now how much that access has actually led to a lot of other things that you unfortunately, it's like Pandora's box, isn't it? Whatever's going to come out is going to come out. And
we've seen people not get moved to clubs because of stuff that 25
years ago, exactly. Yeah.
Some will say that that's part and parcel of being famous. I don't know whether I agree or disagree with it. I think you go into the world now knowing there's pros and cons to social media and knowing that that's what you sell. Yeah. And probably one of the best people at it was David Beckham. He managed to market it incredibly well and very successfully, but he's navigated that tricky path. And it's hard, isn't it? Because I'm going to go on to it in a minute, what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Because that plays a big part in what people are coming into in this world now.
Yeah.
So you're at Portsmouth. You had a fantastic season where you get into the Premier League.
That's right.
How was that?
Cool. I see, it's funny. It's probably one of my greatest achievements on a personal level, because the start of that season, I was told I could leave.
Okay.
So I came back to pre-season and it was Harry's first full season in charge. And he said, Lynn, we've decided not to keep you on, if you can find a club, you can go, sort of thing, or if we can get you out. So I was like, oh, great. And, but a good friend of mine, Mick Mellows, he played for the club in the 70s. He was a chaplain at the club. And he said, Lynn, it's fine. Just, just play, don't play for him now. Just, you've got a gift, play for God. I didn't understand what he meant, but after thinking about it over a couple of days, it was like, Lynn, you got to do this for you, and whatever comes after that comes. So I started to do some extra things, not to impress Harry, just to keep myself ready in case I was able to go. And he pulled me and just said, Lynn, your attitude's been spot on, I want to keep you here. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, that's probably because you couldn't sell me or get rid of me. No one wanted to, no one wanted me. Sort of thing.
The negative.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then I didn't start the first game, and Eddie Howe, who's Newcastle manager now, he started at right back. Eddie gets injured, and Harry says, you're going on at right back. I've never played right back in my career. And I go on and I play, and I think out of the 46 games, I played 41, 42, got player of the year and stuff. So that promotion was amazing. But the nice thing is knowing that I was written off, but still part of it, a major part of it. And so.
And a Pompey legend.
Yeah.
It's a true resilience there, isn't it?
That's it. There was so many times giving up. Yeah.
And to be told, we don't want you.
Yeah.
How does a human deal with that anyway? Rejection's hard.
Yeah.
And not only have you bounced back from that inspirationally, been involved in such a great achievement of winning the league.
Yeah.
And going to the top tier of football. And I asked you this off air before we started. You had doubters all the way through.
Yeah.
People saying he's not good enough.
Yeah.
Why did that drive you?
it drove me, but it was a hindrance as well, because you're always thinking, well, if he says I'm not good enough, and then he says I am, and then someone else says, it's a bit of a hindrance. But I think when your peers say it, that's when it's like, oh, okay. And it happened. When we got to the Prem, I think after the first, I can't remember how many games it was, but where I wasn't in the team, Harry brought in lots of different players, but I played the first couple of games, and in about December time, and it was the first time I would see myself on Match of the Day. So I sat down, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be nice. We just lost. But and Alan Hansen hammered me, and I never watched Match of the Day again.
Really?
Yeah. Because I thought to myself, what's the point? The manager in the dressing room has told me to do something. I'm doing it. And now I'm being analysed like slow motion, Look at him picking his nose or the wrong finger, slow motion. And I never watched it again. And then a couple of years later, I don't know if Harry came back to the club after going to Southampton, but there was an article in 442 in his pre-season, and it was like your 10 top strikers, and then there was 10 players you'd never have in your team, and I was number 2. And one of the lads went, look at that, that's terrible. And I said, I know. I said, and again, I just thought I know what they're attempting to do, but they don't understand the big picture, is that I've been asked to do a job in a position that I don't like, but I'm going to do it because I'm grateful and I'm going to give it my all. But these people said, and like I said, my resilience to that stuff was so strong now, because I knew that whatever their opinions are, they are not important. That's not who I am, and so it never, my mental health during those moments was strong, because I really just believed that, and I say mental health, sorry, my thought process didn't allow the negativity. I made choices now that I don't want to hear that. So I made a choice. If they're going to say this and they might only say it this way, I don't want to hear it at all.
Yeah.
So I made a decision, not in my life. And I think that's what helped me be more resilient, because I thought, I'm not having that in my life, and moved it out. I don't want to hear that.
No, and I can empathise with that and relate massively, because I spent a lot of my life thinking I had to be liked.
Yeah.
Everyone has to like me. And when they didn't, I couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
And I think everybody gets to this point that...
All right, quick real moment. My camera just died. And if I'm honest, for about 10 seconds, I felt that switch flip. That little surge of frustration. The thought of, let's just leave this, sack it off, start again another day. That's usually how bad days begin, isn't it? Not with something massive, just something small that tips you over the edge. But here's the reset. It's just a camera. The message still matters. You're still here. I'm still here. So instead of binning the episode, we're rolling with just audio. Because resilience isn't about everything going smoothly. It's about what you do in the 30 seconds after it. Bad moments don't have to mean bad day. So if something's gone wrong for you today, don't abandon the whole thing. Take a breath, reset, go again. That's what this is. Not perfect, just continued.
I have an epiphany moment, and it comes at different ages, but they get this moment where it doesn't matter anymore. I am who I am, and people will like me or they hate me. There's no between. So I want to ask you 2 things before we move on to what you're doing now. So number 1, best player you ever played with?
That's hard, because Harry likes signing a lot of players, you know that, do you? It's like, never
Transfer day deadline with Harry.
His arm out the window, lads. So I've got to say, for influence, Paul Merson, because I knew how good he was.
Yeah.
But once he was with us and training, and he wasn't at his peak, but he was tremendous. So, and I thought in his heyday, my days, he must be unreal. And I'd say 2 really. Sol Campbell, he was, again, somebody, until you played alongside him, you didn't realise how good and how easy he made the game look.
Yeah.
But what he was doing was like really strong stuff. And David James as well. David James he had a reputation of being like a crazy, shouting at you all the time. What a different man. What a different guy behind the scenes. And part of that, I think there wasn't the same pressure.
Yeah.
So you can just be you, and and I think that was part of it.
I'm an Everton fan, so David James for me was always on the side of the enemy.
Yeah.
When you look at his stats, he was an awesome keeper.
Yeah.
He faced so much ridicule through the press as well, did he? So I think you are so isolated, and it's a lonely game, even though you've got 10 other teammates out there. It's a lonely game.
Yeah.
And it's just strange the other people that you mentioned had their own real battles on and off the pitch.
Yeah.
And they're quite well documented. And it just shows you that the humans are a lot more resilient than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just have to work things out and get there.
Yeah.
But we do. Yeah. So the other one is the best manager you played for.
Oh, man. Okay, for what we achieved, Harry,
yeah,
without a doubt, you can't knock that.
Yeah.
But I think for allowing me to see that, football's not going to be nice all the time, but being who you are whilst in it, even though it's going to try and move you to be somebody else, being who you are is going to be a key thing. And that's a manager called Keith Peacock. So he was my reserve manager at Charlton. And, he knew how to have a laugh, but he knew how to work hard as well. And that's what he done with us. And we kept in contact, even after I left Charlton, kept in contact. And, he's just been a steady person, really, that showed me the side of football that gets spoken about now, and you see a lot more, but you didn't have back then, and he was fierce, but fair as well. And I think if you can balance that right, you'll get respect. And that's why I respect him.
Sometimes it's not always the big names, is it?
No.
It's people who have an impact on your life. They're the people you remember.
Yeah.
That brings us nicely into
nice segue.
What you're doing now.
Yeah.
What have you done since leaving football, and where's it taking you?
Yeah. So it's been so I retired in 2010, knowingly, because I had a knee problem that was never going to improve. So the operation I had was to just give me a strong, good knee for as long as possible after football. And even though I didn't know it, I'd already been mentoring and coaching, like with teammates and younger players. And when I say mentoring, it was like getting them to see who they are in this football world. And the coaching side would come from me just talk about my experiences and how they might adapt. So I found myself doing that. And then an organisation called Christians in Sport approached me about mentoring with anybody in the football world first and foremost, because that's where I'm known, but anybody in any other sport. So I've worked with Olympic sprinters, bobsleigh guys, just the whole board of, and it's come because I've been supporting them. But their thing is more about their support comes from the Bible, because they can't go to church because they're all over the world. So can we help them to get what they need wherever they are? And then about 4 years ago, I started to do some part-time work with the Football League and their education arm, and it's called the LFE. And it's delivering mentoring workshops. So you have 6 sessions with the first-year scholars, so they're 16. And those sessions explore self-reflection, identity, what does sporting identity look like? What does other identities look like? Where do you fit? And the final session in terms of active is more about, these are players that are doing things outside the game. Look what they are. Look how varied they are. Some play chess, fishing, all sorts of different things. So it's to help them understand that even though they play football, they've got other strings to their bow. They've got other gifts. And then that's the first year. And then in the second year, they're finding out whether they're going to get taken on as pros or not. And we have another meet up with them to help them think about what transition looks like, whether it's into the first team or to another club. But we've already looked at that a year before. So what it does, it builds up a picture for them. So by the time the decision comes for them to go on again, my relationship is strong because we've had this time here. So I just thought to myself, there's a gap. There's a gap here, 14 to 15-year-olds, 14, 15, 16, who are on that pathway to professional sport, but they're getting a lot of physical input, but they're not getting a lot of mental input. They're not getting a lot of space to think about themselves, think what other things they like. They're not getting that space. So the way I describe it, I'm creating a space to be able to speak to these young people, but from a place of, right, why do you react that way to that? What's going on here? But not from me to say, well, you should do this, but you've already got the answer there, and you've tried to pull it, because if it means that you've pulled it out, it's going to mean more to you than me telling you that it's there. So it's underway. Who knows how it will play out? But one of the things I really want to do, this is a big thing for me. This isn't one size fits all, because I recognise that golfers are different schedules from tennis players and stuff like that. And also people are different, and sometimes what I needed at 18 was just someone, their arm around me, say, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right. That's all I would have needed.
Yeah.
And I would have been okay. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's going to be okay. I know.
Yeah, and it comes, like you say, every human's different, and how we manage those. Some people are very good at management.
Yeah.
They're very good at looking at an individual and saying, this is what they need.
Yeah.
And that's their skill. Do you think football's more brutal now than it was? You already talked about how they whittled you down.
Yeah.
But now it is a big business, isn't it? And they're in academies from 6 years old. And from 6 years old, they're told you're a footballer, you're a footballer, you're a footballer. And that's what's drilled into them. They're a footballer. And then it's still brutal because they get to 16 and they let loads of them go. Yeah. And most of them don't get a professional contract at 18. And what do they do
next?
then?
I know.
Because all they've been drilled into is football, the sacrifices that come with it. And you talk about your early career, and there were stages there where you were vulnerable and took advantage of. And even more so now, because those people that do make it, the money is incredible. What they get paid is astronomical figures. There's people waiting there to out for themselves unscrupulously, will take advantage of them. But not only that, the ones that get left by the wayside, what do they do to earn money now?
Well, this is the scary thing. I haven't got the numbers now, but going back, I reckon early 2011, I used to go into prisons and do talks to either young offenders or, the mainstream prisons. And the stat for one particular prison was, I'm going to say it a bit lower, but they reckon that 40% of the prisoners in that had been touched by professional football, and they're not saying this was the outcome, but it's a high number that have been involved in football at some point, trials, been there, who are now with us in the prison. So there's something that comes along with the hope of football, but when that hope goes, it's like you say, what do I do? So it's rather than waiting to say, what do I do? It's like, let's give them the options while they're playing. Yeah. So even if they say, what do I do? They can think, oh yeah, he did say about that, or he did say about that. But if you wait until it's over, your motivation gone, you think you failed, your identity to everybody else is, oh, he's a failed footballer, and then, so yeah, so there's a way it's not a scientific fact of what I am doing, but what I've seen over the years, we've got to measure. Like someone says, I'm not confident. I say, that's fine, but you've got to measure a confidence. And what we'll do, when you felt good and confident and it felt like this, we'll take little steps to it. And I said, you'll get there, but you'll look at it and it might scare you again, because actually, if you go here, that means you're expected to play well every week and you don't like it. So you duck under and you say, oh, that's tired, that's tired. I said, let's face it again. If you're not ready to face it, it's fine. We'll just stay here, but let's play at your optimal here. But you'll face it and then you'll look at it and go, okay, let me because we're taking little steps.
Yeah.
And again, if someone had said that to me, because it's already there.
Yeah.
You know, it's already there. It's like, you know, the worst night, say you had the worst in your previous job, had the worst experience of night shift ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves something where it was so unexpected. You still know the next night you've got to go out, you have to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can make you go out. And
No.
that probably won't happen again like the night before, but you still, it's something in you says, I've got to go, I've got to do it. And no one can make that happen, can they, apart from yourself? And that's what it's looking into now, to say, right, okay then, that's fine, that's the sport you love, and we get that, but okay, let's look at these other things, how they can complement that.
And it comes down to something else that I always say is only self can change self.
Yes.
They need to want to make the changes.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you're using your own lived experiences to help others shape, especially now the environment's changed and it's okay to start talking about that. Not that it wasn't, it was just not the done thing, was it?
No.
It was frowned upon.
Yeah.
It's very stigma. Oh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Emotions.
Yeah. Oh, stay away from that. Yeah.
Boys don't cry.
Yeah.
So you just shut up and get up and man up.
Yeah. Rub it off. I know you need 20 stitches, but rub it off.
the magic sponge will clean it all up, so that's fine. But obviously, you now know that the world is changing, so there is a space for this.
Yeah.
And it helps these people who might not be the fortunate ones to make it, to give them identity. And obviously, from what you're saying, there's obviously a correlation there between where they end up.
Yeah.
If the paths change and they get sliding door moments.
That's it.
You know, on another universe, another reality, they make it and they're married.
Yeah.
But so with that, you're helping these kids, they're mentoring them through.
Yeah.
And I think that's really admirable. Look, I've loved speaking to you today.
Thank you.
And I definitely think there's another episode.
Oh, without a doubt, without a lie. Yeah.
A lot more that the listeners out there are going to be saying, what? You love
that? Yeah.
We can talk about that. Yeah. I'd love to have you back on again.
I'd love if I'm on again, Dan. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
So brilliant. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Your story's inspirational. As a boy that had the dream of being a footballer, I have millions of questions, so I'm sure that will happen in another episode.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of another episode of Hello You. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on all major platforms.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for being you. This was Hello You, where real conversations create real change. If today's episode moved you, challenged you, or simply made you feel seen, then share it, talk about it, and be part of the ripple. And remember, no matter where you are or what you're facing, you're never alone in this. We're building something together, and there's always room for you. I'm Dan Darwin, and until next time, be kind to your mind, be kind to yourself, and hello, you.